This is Smoking Out the Closet. Now, here are your hosts.
Hi, I'm Rayven. I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, I'm Asmodeus. I use they, them pronouns.
And welcome back to another episode of Smoking Out the Closet. For those of you who are new or just joining us, we are a queer podcast.
Pun intended.
That talks about cannabis.
The LGBT community.
And everything in between.
And beyond.
So welcome.
Welcome.
Oh, boy. Okay, so we just finished a sesh. So we're actually doing this backwards recording. Wait, hang on. We're recording this episode backwards, in a sense. So we just had one of my Skittles for this week, and a really best bud. CJ Cowgill from Balanced Veteran Network, or BVN, who we talked about previously on this podcast before. But we had him on the show, and so what we're doing is we're doing a post-interview discussion to talk about some things that happened that we feel like should be talked about, and then also kind of to introduce the guest. So we're going to do stuff we want to talk about and then kind of introduce the interview, and then we're just going to sign off and then bring it back to past us. So if you're listening to this, even though this is technically you're listening to us as we're recording it, our recording selves future, you'll be hearing a more past version of us with the interview.
I think I could speak for everybody when I say this. I'm too high for this. And I mean that with all the love in the world. Yes, you will be hearing we're recording essentially, yes, explained a lot of what she said in the first place. We're recording the episode backwards.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay, so first thing I want to talk about, ironically, after the last episode, I talked briefly about J.K. Rowling and her transphobic tweets. Well, for about exactly a week after that to 2 weeks, she had been totally quiet online because I learned that Iman, I'm so sorry I'm butchering the name right now, their Algerian boxer, who is being falsely accused of being trans, was suing J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk for about $660,000 a piece. So for a while, J.K. Rowling was not tweeting anything, and then came back in and doubled down on everything, and saying that, like, just throwing makeup on her is not, with this PR stunt's not going to ignore the fact that she's not a woman. Yeah.
Wait. Again, she probably doesn't listen to this podcast, but shut the fuck up.
But I'm a feminist.
No, you're a TERF.
You're like, masculine women exist. Also, the league, and I said this last time, I'm pretty sure, the league that was saying that she had XY chromosomes was charged with, like, match tampering and fixing fights. Really going to take their word for it? Really?
J.K. Rowling's one of those people that are like the vaccines cause autism people, who they see one thing and they're like, oh, even though it might not be a credible source, she'll just be like, oh.
Yeah.
Could you get any worse? Don't answer that. She probably doesn't listen, but don't answer that. Universe, don't answer that. I don't think she can get worse, but don't answer that.
Yeah, it's rough.
God.
It's rough.
Rough?
But yeah, no, J.K. Rowling's gotten and it was nice. It was very quiet on Twitter for a bit, and then all of a sudden everything exploded again because of her.
Well, it's good that she's finally getting some of what's coming to her. That's not going to be anything in her income, though.
No, probably not in the long run.
She's not going to miss it.
No.
She might not even hear about it. She'll have somebody else deal with it for her.
But speaking of double standards, because that was just a small update, do you want to talk about your double standard you found with fucking Dr. Oz? And cannabis. So
I was scrolling along my Google News feed, and I'm like, see some shit about Oz. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing now? But it said Oz, and there was a cannabis leaf, and I'm like, wait a second. So, of course, I click on it, and it's like, the headline was something or other about Dr. Hawes approves of cannabis use, has approval of cannabis use.
Yeah, and when you sent that to me, the only thing that went through my mind was the Punisher sound clip. Wait.
Who cares if Dr. Oz is kidding? I don't know why you feel like it was necessary to say nobody cares about you. You're not relevant.
But was it because he was trying to run for Pennsylvania Senate position that thankfully John Fetterman won.
Yeah.
But wasn't he, if I recall correctly, wasn't he staunchly anti-cannabis? Wasn't that part of his whole platform?
Absolutely.
Was no cannabis?
Absolutely.
And okay, I give it to you if you're gonna if you're going to grow, if you're admit that oh yeah, I learned since then that it's just something that I have learned and grown from. But literally you can watch compilations of things Dr. Oz has sold or has pushed to be sold on a show, or different things that are super contradictory, that literally within the same season he will say one thing and it counteracts the other in 2 episodes later.
I know we were discussing briefly before the show that I don't know how I hadn't told you this before about this whole Dr. Oz debacle, even with him running, like you said, and thankfully Fetterman won, but that my mother and I used to watch him all the time on TV, and that I remember his Just 10 bracelets and things, just lose 10 pounds, just walk 10,000 steps. That was alright, and then there was, I don't know where he just fucking derailed. It was watching, it literally was like that. It's like watching a train derail in slow motion. If I think back to how he used to be just some sort of weird daytime TV, health nut, right? And now all this weird shit.
I think it's kind of always been there. The problem is you have these... And the base issue I've always had with Dr. Oz, which is why I never really watched him, or Dr. Phil, they're inter-doctors is what I like to call them. They're not really informative doctors. They're more entertainative doctors. They're like the breakfast things you see on news stations, oh, here, eat this low-fat omelet and it'll help you lose weight. Sure, if you eat that as a part of your regular diet and everything, sure, it could help you on the...
Talking about all the morning daily shows and shit that are just kind of oh, here's how to start your day right.
Yeah,
here's some health tips, and they talk real nice and sweet, and have their coffee there sitting and whatever.
But that's just for ratings. That's all it really is.
That's all it always is. And then you get into the real news after everybody's gone to work, and
and it's weird because I feel that if you multiply, because most of the time with the news stations, they're okay, in my opinion. They're they're a little you got to tweak things a little bit, but most of the time they're as part of something, you know?
Yeah.
Where it was and I feel that's what kind of Dr. Oz started as, but as time went on, it just went to, this is the cure-all! Buy my ionized bracelets!
They give you radiation poisoning.
Not saying
cancer.
Not saying that he did that, I'm just saying that's an extreme example.
And not that is speculation. I have to put that disclaimer there, so if anybody hears this, they don't get offended and try to sue me because I have no money. Don't do that. But just Google it. Just Google it for yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness going on with that, I will say. But
the fake metaphysical world links strangely in with Dr. Oz too.
A little, yeah.
It's this Western world fascination, I feel with that, because modern medicine, a lot of people get, they just get exasperated, and rightfully so, and some things are just horrible in your body, absolutely.
Yes, but you also gotta be careful what you're also putting in your body.
Exactly, and not just taking anybody's advice, just these, you said, inter doctors, entertainer doctors, or whatever on TV.
Because, like, the biggest one that I used to kind of like watching in the morning was I say a kid, but I mean, I was like high school, was like The Doctors, where it was a panel of the doctors. But even watching them, I knew there was like most of it was just snake oil.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a sad thing. It's like there's people still out there selling snake oil, but like Dr. Oz,
and there are people still buying into it.
Yeah, but like Dr. Oz getting into cannabis now. Is he trying to run again? Is he trying to run for something?
Maybe, I don't know. Or he's just trying to stay, like I said earlier, trying to stay relevant, but nobody cares. Literally, I mean, he might just know that nobody cares.
I would really like it to. I really want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's grown, but there's a lot that's telling me he hasn't. But if he has, and if he's generally grown, I'm willing to extend that olive branch a little bit more.
Well, my thing is what we were saying earlier too. Is he's been a snake like this how long?
He's been very wishy-washy with, like, his actual beliefs.
So we'll kind of I'm on the fence.
At least the ones we've seen in the public eye. So.
Give it 3 months, we'll see what he says again. Or even a month. It might not take... Give him 3 weeks.
So, is there anything you want to add to that?
He's just a fucking, like I said, train wreck, mess. Hot disaster, whatever you want it. It's same... A rose by any other name would smell just as sweet.
So I do want to give some shout-outs really fast from Skittles. Did you have any Skittles?
I didn't, no.
Okay, that's fine. I have 2 big ones. One is our guest, I will say. CJ was an awesome guest. We had a little bit of technical issues at first, but it was very, very, understanding and everything, very accommodating, kind of listened to us. So it was very nice.
Yeah, you were awesome, dude.
Love to interact with you. Definitely can't wait to see you if we ever get a chance to run into you here in PA.
Absolutely. Hopefully, one or both of us can make it out to Kutztown.
But the person I am trying to look for, his name is Griff, I'm assuming. On Instagram, he goes by Chimney Griff, and it is freaking awesome. This guy just rips from the bong off camera slightly, and just got really big on Instagram on it very quickly because he just started ripping for other people. He'd be like, that one was for you, Bob. And it was so wholesome because, like, every now and again, he'll also have other videos where, like, he's at a family gathering and he has, like, little clips of him smoking with a bunch of different family members. There's, like, sometimes where he's like, he made one where he was like, that's for my parents because they were, like, dope people and raised me. And I'm like, this is just this is wholesome, and I love it. So I've been watching a lot of their reels.
That was cute.
I think it's really cool. So yeah, go check them out. I'm definitely in that mood where, you just, and I think it's being mindful. If you want to take a look at it like a meditation kind of thing, it's like being mindful. It's you're taking a moment to think about someone else, and it's like that Thanksgiving kind of going around, as much as I don't like the history of Thanksgiving, that, like, going around the table and saying what you're thankful for what happened that year. It's very mindful, I feel like that, in a sense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to take a little moment to, like, breathe in and out, like, breathe in gratefulness and exhale a thanks. When I hit my bong or my Dr. Dabber or my Puffco or my pen or whatever.
I love integrating little mindfulness things like that, and understandably so. You don't like Thanksgiving. You can take the good parts away and leave whatever the fuck.
Yeah, like leave the bad, take the
bad
good.
shit.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I'd love to integrate those, especially when I'm making coffee. Because, like, if I'm putting anything in my coffee, or if I'm making tea, stirring sugar into my tea, I rotate clockwise to bring in I just say bring in the good shit, and I rotate counterclockwise to get rid of the bad shit. Bring in the good shit, out with the bad shit.
Oh, yeah, I never did say, We don't have a review this week.
We don't know.
So I think this is the first time we've done an episode and we didn't have a review. And unfortunately, the product I wanted to review that I was saving up, it was definitely something I wanted to try multiple times. It was an AeroPod. We hit it too much.
We killed it today on our walk.
So, unfortunately, Arrow's kind of in this weird spot. They lost their original person they were growing for their white label, and now they got a new one, so they're slowly coming back into our market. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get some of their products in and review them. It's just, I'm trying to do a thing now where I'm hitting it a little more before we try it super new, to try calculating into my review.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like, because like longevity should be something we should be taking into consideration, because we reviewed some products and then I've had some patients like 2 days after we reviewed it and we just, got it new ourselves, had to return the product back. So I'm trying to do that more of an aspect now.
Yeah.
Since, we got a little more time. So anything you want to add before we send it off to us in the interview?
Just enjoy this interview. It was really fun. CJ's super knowledgeable, big weed nerd, super fun to talk to. I wish we could have also shared the video aspect because I was just sitting watching both, Rayven and him talk about, their military service and being veterans and talking about cannabis and just the things that bring us together. It was just a really nice experience, nice conversation. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to run a little ad in between this time. I think we're just going to go straight on through. So here's us with CJ. Hi, I'm Rayven. I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, I'm Asmodeus. I use they, them pronouns.
And welcome back to another episode of
Smoking Out the Closet.
So today we're joined by CJ from BVN, the Balanced Veterans Network. So say hi to everybody, CJ.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me on today.
Thank you for coming and joining our show. I'm actually been really excited to finally get you on this show and been working with BVN for a minute, so very excited to be working with you guys on this, have you on our show. So usually we always ask people, what their name, pronouns are. So if you want to introduce who you are and what you do with the Balanced Veteran Network.
All right. So my name is CJ. I go by he, him, I guess is my pronouns. Forgive me if I'm a little bit old school. I try to be very respectful of everybody. And I don't always catch the correct pronouns, but I do my best. So with that said, what do I do for Operation 1620 and Balanced Veterans Network? I am the director of the Operation 1620 program. Balanced Veterans Network has several pillars. We have a community pillar. We have a mental wellness pillar. We have the Operation 1620 pillar that I run, and the Project Triangle, which is use of ethogens and stuff. So I've been with Balanced Veterans Network since about 2017, and just kind of fell into the role of taking charge of things and running with the show, and I've been doing it since then, and it's been very rewarding.
That's awesome. For some of our listeners who might not have catched the episode where we talked about it previously, could you talk about what exactly BVN does in specifics, especially with Operation 1620?
Absolutely. So the idea is we are building a community for veterans to find alternative modalities of healing. It's been proven to all of us veterans that we've been failed across the board by the VA and traditional healthcare time and time again. We're overprescribed pills and underprescribed mental health care that we really need. So Balanced Veterans Network is just that. We're an all-encompassing resource for alternative modalities of healing. We do yoga classes. We have sound meditation. We have done some movement programs like the Couch to 10 Miler, where we got trained our veterans to run a 10-mile event in DC. So that's just part of it. And then Operation 1620, which is where I rely very heavily, is the cannabis portion. So with that, in 13 different states right now, we have the ability to help our veterans in our community access a medical marijuana card through one of our providers, and then we reimburse the state fees too. So the goal with that is kind of just to break down that initial cost barrier for somebody that might be trying a medicine for their first time. As well with Operation 1620, something that I'm very proud of is we educate our community on how to home grow and how to use their medicines. So it's very all-encompassing. I can take people from seed to harvest and post-harvest processing, whether they want to take their post-harvest products and make butters or tinctures, salves, edibles, or just press it and make rosin so they can have a highly concentrated dose to smoke on their own, whatever they may need. And then within the community, we're able to share our experiences. Because as most of us know who've used cannabis, it's not a one-shoe-fits-all here. I'm going to liken this to ADHD medicine. If you take ADHD medicine and have the ADHD, it will make you calm. But if you are taking it and it's not prescribed, it can make you a little racy. So cannabis, for the most part, will treat a lot of our patients the same way with different strains or cultivars. But there are those outliers that have the one that makes everybody else calm. It can make you a little racy or paranoid. So it's a medicine that's best openly spoken with within a community, so you can see what everybody's experiences are and how that medicine best fits their needs. So that's really a big part of it. And then I don't know if I touched on the Project Triangle part, but that's where we're pushing for other alternative medicines, ethogens like magic mushrooms, ketamine treatment, MDMA therapy, ayahuasca therapy. In the month of July, we had, I believe, 16 of our representatives in D.C. talking to over 30 members of Congress, petitioning for the MDMA therapy at the VA hospitals. And unfortunately, that program didn't get passed. They want to do some more research. But we were, as I like to say, the tip of the spear as far as advocacy on that. And that's a huge part, too, is breaking down these walls and using our community and our network to try to reach out to the representatives and let them know how we feel and that we need to have access across the board for these medications. So that's the short of what we do.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I remember when that MDMA notice came out, and I was actually one of the people locally was able to catch it in enough time to actually sign that petition. So I was very grateful that like BVN was also a big spear with that, trying to actually get it to veterans to be like, hey, here's how we're going to do it. Here's what we're going to do to try to actually spread word about that MDMA program. I think Azzy has a question here for you.
Yeah, I did want to touch on what we were talking about earlier. It's great that you guys like reimburse or try to reimburse the state fee for veterans, because I know even just in general for us working in the industry, that's a lot of barriers for new patients as well. And I know if you do, have a some sort of state assistance, they will waive the fee, the $50 state fee when you sign up. But kind of segueing into, since we were talking about cannabis, do you have a favorite strain or like your strain that you're, using a lot right now?
So a favorite strain for me. So first, let me say I've been smoking cannabis regularly for over 2 decades. I was retired in 2003. I know it's funny. I don't look like an old guy, but I'm kind of an old guy. I really like, I hate the word sativa and indica, but I'm going to use it because everybody understands it. I just nerd out a little hard on cannabis. But I like narrow leaf cultivars for the daytime. And I'm really trying to narrow in on one. So I've been pheno hunting through a strain called Fist Bump from Irie Genetics. And it's a cross of East Coast Sour Diesel and Arise. And I really like potent cannabis that I like to say gets me high, not stoned for my regular use, because I'm a pretty big user throughout the day. And I'm really liking this Fist Bump. I'm going on the 3rd round of growing it now, and I've narrowed it down from eight girls to 3 to 1. So I picked my favorite out of the bunch. and she's going to stick around for a good long time. It's a very citrusy smoke, but it has what I like to call armpit funk on the front end. So it comes in real heavy and funky, and it coats your mouth. And I think it's something I'm noticing a lot of guys in their like 40s and 50s who were smoking herb back in the 90s are really fans of that. I call it armpit funk. Or if you've ever been in a locker room where they play hockey, their pads get sweaty and nasty. But this finishes with this really great grapefruity citrus note. So it gets me high in the way where I smoke it and I'm like, let's go disc golf. Let's go be with the family. It has enough pain relieving qualities to make my knees not hurt so bad and that kind of stuff. But it really, it gets me high, and it gets me high for several hours. And
That's
with
awesome.
that, I'm going to say this strain runs about 90 days. So a lot of these kind of cultivars you're not going to find commercially available, because in a commercial environment, it doesn't make sense to grow these longer running strains when there's nickels and dimes to be counted at the end of the day. There's a whole nother harvest that can be had in a year. So this is why I advocate for home grow, and it's a big part of what I teach for Operation 1620, and what I want to push advocacy in our group for is to make sure all our patients can home grow, because when you find that strain that works for you and it goes off of your market, it is just terrible. When you find the one and it works, like I said, this fist pump, I can use it all day. It doesn't knock me down, but by the end of the night, with the regular use, it can help relax me enough to sleep, especially with some edibles. I would be, it would suck if I was stuck in a commercial market and lost this strain, is what I'm trying to say. So I love it. You got to find the one that makes you go and keep that.
I do feel like that's the number one complaint I hear from patients is, like you were saying, you find that beautiful, perfect strain that you love so much and you hold on to it for dear life, and maybe it only comes around, like it's a little bit of a longer grower. I think here Harley Quinn comes around maybe once every 3 months to my store. It's a high CBD strain, sativa, and everybody loves it. And when it goes off the market, everybody's like, where did it go? But yeah, that sounds like a pretty awesome strain you got going on over there.
Thank you. Yeah, and I like all of them, but that's just the current favorite.
Yeah, and I know here, like, PA with, like, the genetics and everything, there's no home grow as of right now, but there is a huge push with a lot of legislation that, like, if anybody's going to support it, it has to have home grow, like, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's got to have home grow. So we're definitely excited to see if any bill, like, when it goes through, like, if it has it or not. But I did have a question, because you live in, I'm not going to say the area exactly, but you live in the state of Illinois, correct?
Yes, I'm in Illinois. So we do have the ability to legally home grow 5 plants in our state, which isn't quite enough in my opinion, but it's better than nothing. And like I said, advocacy is a huge thing. And what I'd like to try to do as I advocate is get some numbers from states like mine and other states that have home grow, and be able to go to the representatives of states like yours that doesn't allow it, and be like, look, the sales aren't down because of home growers. It's just like breweries. It's just like growing your own tomatoes. It's not for everybody. It's really not. And we're not going to take anything away from that big slice of pie that's out there. We're going to take a narrow little wedge as a home grower and run with it. But as veterans, a lot of us have early retirements or disabilities that may keep us home more. And home growing is super therapeutic to us. So not only are we able to grow our own medicine, we're getting therapy from it. And I don't know a home grower who still doesn't go to the dispensary. That's how we find new strains. That's how we access products that are a little bit more difficult to make at home. Because not everybody's a hash specialist. Even though I can teach you how, the equipment and the knowledge and the process, it's tedious. I personally don't do it all, even though I have in the past, because it's too much work. It's easier to go I spend all my time growing my plants for my flour, and that can make my butter and stuff. But cartridges and processes like that for these very refined hash products, it's far better to go get it from a lab that has $50,000 equipment to do it, and freeze dryers for their rosin and that stuff, because it's incomprehensible for the average home grower to spend that kind of money for a machine they're barely going to use.
Exactly, and that's one thing I've always tried telling patients and people here. Like, if the market's still going to be there, and just because people are going to start home growing does not mean, like, you use the tomato example. That's the example I use quite a bit for a lot of people. We're definitely excited to hear, because that's one thing we want to try to do is travel to different states more and try the different states' programs, especially like recreational or states with I can never pronounce the word. You pronounce it for me all the time. Reciprocity.
Oh my goodness! No, I can't even.
I think it's reciprocity of cards, where they like honor the medical card in other states.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So like. That's one thing we always, like, we definitely want to get bigger with the podcast, to try these different markets in different states and kind of, like, find these other groups where, like, you know, events like we were watching some of the videos right before the recording, so I can give Asmodeus a little refresher on, and myself a refresher on, like, what you do with BVN on, like, the video format of Bowlside chat, and just hearing some of these events and everything, I'm like, I wish I had more money to travel.
So the key to the events, and I get asked a lot, that is, we have a lot of events here in Chicago, and the reason is because, well, I like to throw a party, and that's the way I look at it. Is I've always just, let's do it. So your local resources are very available. When you go out there and you tell them you're a veteran, I tell people, I'm going to hold you to your word now. You've said you're going to help us. It's as easy as you donating, your local grocery store, donating a couple cases of water, a couple cases of hamburgers and hot dogs and some bread and chips. And you go to your local county park or city park and let them know you're a nonprofit, you're working with a nonprofit, and you have a veteran group who would like to come out. They'll usually give you the pavilion space for free. I've just kind of run it like that. And then I held other people, like, hey, you want to help veterans? You run a band. Come play my festival, you know. You got a grill? Hey, I hit up my friends, like, hey, come grill for my veteran friends. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, man, you're good on the grill. He's like, well, okay, cool. And I kind of ringed in volunteers like that, gave him a shirt for doing it that said volunteer, and was able to put some things together. It's really just a matter of finding somebody that's motivated in the area to do it. And we have a lot of veterans in your area. So we're working on funding so I can travel out there and try to get some events put together in your area too. And if we can get something like that, I'd like to work with local resources like yourselves, who have some local knowledge of where we could put these things together. And that's what it's all about, is building the community and getting together and just sharing some space with one another and remembering that that's what it's all about.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's definitely what it is, and that's why I'm so glad that we ended up finding y'all when we did, because I feel like it's definitely something that, like, as we're growing and as you guys are growing, we can definitely, like, kind of work together, and I'm very excited for that, because I've never really personally used my veteran status for a lot of things, because I wasn't in for super long, so I always felt like not really a veteran, but it took a long time for me to kind of get over that. And it was a lot of help from the local VA here in Pittsburgh. They were just like, no, you still signed the dotted line. Like, even if you didn't serve all 4 years, you still signed up to do it. So, and it's a lot of things where I still don't like to use my veteran status for, like, my personal stuff. But, like, with these kinds of things, I'm more, okay, it's helping others, so I'm going to use it more often. And very excited to see, like, BVN grow in this area, because there's a lot of, like, cannabis and there's a lot of vets here in our area, and I don't know what to add to that, so I'm just gonna pass it to Azzy.
Can I comment real quick? You said something that hit home. I served just under 3 years, and I got out medically. I didn't go to combat. I packed my troops up, and I actually was on duty the night the orders came through for the 101st to go to Iraq. And most of those guys had only been back for 6 months from Afghanistan, and they all had to go. And I got sent home, and it sucked. And I didn't feel like I was worthy of my veteran status, let's just say. But that's a bunch of BS. All of us, like you said, who signed up are worthy. And any of these resources that we let go and don't use get brushed aside, and they won't be there for the next generation of veterans. So we need to make sure we use all the resources possible. So any of your listeners out there, if you're feeling like you're not enough, just brush that aside. You got through something in basic training that less than 7% of our population alive in this country has been able to do. That goes for veteran, active duty, and all statuses, be it reserve, all statuses. 7% of our population. We're that much of a minority, and we're dropping off real quick because we're losing our World War II and our Vietnam era veterans. So this last 2 decades of war of us young veterans, we need to access these resources, or the government's not going to give them back to us. They're going to cut the numbers, they're going to cut the funding, and we're not going to get it. So please, please, please reach out to your local resources and gather them. If you need any help or assistance with that, you have a county Veteran Assistance Commission that can get you squared away with a lot of that stuff, or reach out into the community with Balanced Veterans Network or any of the other veterans you know, and they can get you squared away. I've been working with a lot of other nonprofits as a Balanced Veterans Network has grown. Locally, we have a nonprofit called Veterans Path to Hope, and they do homelessness and food, and they're really on that cutting edge where they're getting our veterans off the streets, getting them the support they need, getting them housed, making sure they have food, and making sure they're getting these resources. And it just opened my eyes to see that these resources go to waste. We should never do that. Don't be afraid of your veteran status. You earned it. And I'm not saying scream and pound your chest and think you're better than anybody. But hey, man, if they're going to offer you a discount on a meal, take it. If Disneyland's going to let your family come in for a little cheaper, you betcha, you earned it. Absolutely. Every one of us earned those benefits. Thank you all for earning it and being part of the family and part of the brotherhood and sisterhood. We are veterans now. We earned that status. So sorry for being long-winded there. I'm very passionate about that.
No, don't be, because that is something that took me a long time to get to where I am now. Very similar mindset. It took a long time for me to get there, and I think a lot of it was something like cannabis helped me kind of get over. There was a big window of grief for me that was just very hard for me to get over, because I grew up in a very military background family. Like, we've had multiple generations of my family on both my maternal grandparents' side and even further on both my dad's sides. So it was kind of hard because it was something I wanted to do since I was probably knee high to myself right now. It definitely took a long time to go through, but that's one thing where, ironically, I started learning about you guys when I was trying to get my company, which we don't say who we work for just to make sure we're okay with our employers. But I was trying to get my company to do outreach for vets, because when I went to the VA hospital one day, I ended up just helping these 3 guys point them in the right direction for their cards, which I didn't know about BVN at the time, but I knew a lot of cheaper resources here in PA. And I was just like, hey, let's try getting you your cards, because I know it's very helpful. And the VA hospital here in Pittsburgh is wonderful. They were definitely very pro-cannabis without being super pro-cannabis per the limits of the VA system and everything. But they're very nice and resourceful with that. And I'm very thankful, even though that thing with work didn't really plan out the way I wanted to, I was able to find you guys. Do you had a question? I can't remember. No. I did have another one here in my notes. Let me actually just pull it up real fast. No, I did. You did say you got out in 2003, and you were talking about Afghanistan and Iraq. I'm assuming you were in the Army.
Yeah, I was regular Army, and I served from 2000 to 2003. And I got out medically. They kind of tortured me for a little while. Sent me home, sent me packing, and I had to navigate my way through the VA system and get a rating and go through all that stuff. And that's a lot of work, man. They kind of just leave us to dry, and you don't even know. I wound up being hospitalized and didn't even know I had veteran benefits. Was poor, broke, and went in a regular county hospital. They're like, you're a veteran. You're rated. I'm like, yeah, I know. They're like, if you go to the VA, I'm like, oh, I can. Like, I didn't even know I could go to the VA hospital. So it's been quite the journey.
That was definitely one thing I'm beneficial for, like, my parents, like, giving me that knowledge, because they had to do a lot of that stuff themselves. But I'm wondering, what was it like for you, like, when you first, as a vet, going and getting cannabis to help with, like, anything that was, like, service connected, one way, or not even service connected, just any ailments from being a veteran and being in the service?
So my cannabis use predates my time of service. I was a troubled youth and experimented heavily with cannabis and other drugs. Cleaned up, went to the military, got out medically, and with that came a litany of prescription pills, of course, because, I'm broken. So 400-ish pills a month is what they had me on total, between pain pills, benzodiazepines, muscle relaxers, neuro pain blockers, the whole 9 yards. And I was using cannabis the whole time and drinking, and kind of just being reckless for a little while is the right way to put it, and going down a really wild path. But I was using cannabis the whole time pretty regularly and heavily. And I want to say around 2010, became a single dad, and had some revelations while I was on a trip in Oregon. Injured. I had a doctor recommend cannabis as medicine, and I actually took some ethogens and had a experience that made me feel that I needed to do some life-changing things. And at that time, I decided that I was going to delve into cannabis very deeply and use it as a medicine, not just as a way to go get high. And I pretty much quit all my pills on the spot cold turkey because I needed to be a better dad. And I had good access to cannabis at the time, even though it was black market, and started using it heavily. In the period from 2010 to like 2017, when it became medical, I was stopped twice by police and arrested with misdemeanor amounts of cannabis. It was ugly. They arrested me and took me away while my 2-year-old daughter was crying in a car, and some ugly shit. But that whole time I advocated for this plant medicine. And in 2017, when it became legal, or 2018, I started growing at home. I found Balanced Veterans Network, and I found my calling. My experience with cannabis for 2 decades in the black market, and finding and navigating that on my own, gave me a lot of insight and information and education, because I just started reading everything I could, listening to any podcast I could, sorting through the information, getting to good information, growing and trying strains from very reliable sources, so I knew what I was getting. And with Balanced Veterans Network, I'm able to share that knowledge. And I found something that I've never been more passionate about, and it's my ability to take this medicine and share it within the veteran community who may not have all the depth and knowledge that I have on it. And even if you do like the medicine, you might not want to sit and listen to podcasts for hours about who actually has that right strain, because there's a lot of people that sell seeds and clones, And if you Google, let's just say Blue Dream, for example, a lot of seed banks are going to pop up, and a lot of them are not going to sell you Blue Dream, not the real thing. So I kind of like to have that knowledge of who is the original breeder, who has the original cuts from the forum days back in the early 2000s when we were bouncing around on forums. If you backtrack all the knowledge, you can find the right strains in medicine. So I'm able to share that with the community. And like I said, I'm off of over 400 pills a month now. I take a heartburn pill daily and an allergy pill daily, and a lot of cannabis. I dose a couple 100 milligrams per night in edibles to go to sleep and not have night terrors. And I consume throughout the day to keep me in a balanced space.
Well, that's awesome to hear, because like my dad went through a lot of medications with the VA as well too, and he's got liver issues now because of all the medications they put him on. And it's kind of rough seeing him go through that, honestly, because he was in a hospital for a few days after a recent bad event happened, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna keep an eye on your liver really close right now." But I'm glad that cannabis has been able to help you with that, and it's helped a lot of people, both of us included. Is there anything you want to tell our listeners before we fully wrap up here about BVN you might not have touched on, or anything like resources or ways to contact you guys or anything like that?
Well, one quick thing coming up, I want to talk about some more advocacy work. In September, we are going to be working with the Last Prisoner Project. Every president on their way out likes to pardon people. So we are going to be asking President Biden to pardon the veterans who are in jail across our country for nonviolent cannabis-related crimes on his way out. And we'll be representing in D.C. Throughout September for that. So, we're just trying to do stuff like that. You can find us at www.balancedveterans.org. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We have some private Facebook groups that are really cool to check out. The Operation 1620 Facebook group is the cannabis-related one. It is a closed group. We vet all our members in the community. We make sure they're veterans and veteran supporters. And I'm really grateful to be on the podcast. And I know you guys checked out Bowlside Chats. It's something I'm working on. And hopefully here, once I get my end sorted out so we can do the recordings, I can have you guys on.
That'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, I just want to say thank you not only for your service to the country, but also just your service of what you're doing for our fellow veterans. And I'm so glad that I found, in a way, kind of like happenstance, but in a way that kind of feels universal in a sense of finding BVN. I definitely want to have, down the road, maybe some more folks come on, but definitely want to have our podcast work with you guys as much as we can.
I wanted just to add, like how she was talking about, it kind of seemed like universal. I was talking with my coworkers at my dispensary the other day how I feel like this plant, this medicine has a weird way of bringing us all together. The people who are supposed to meet and the ones who are supposed to help each other. It just brings us all closer together as just a community.
100%. Is there any other? So they call it a drug, but people who do drugs, they go hide away. They do their drugs. Cannabis is medicine, and forever, for centuries, we have gathered around in circles, be it around a campfire or a kitchen or a table or whatever it is, and we've shared this medicine. Cannabis is something you get and you're excited about, and you go tell your friends, like, hey guys, I got this cannabis. It's this new strain. Do you want to come try it with me? And you share it. Nothing else in the world does that. So people come together, and there's something special with that, like you said, and it is amazing that it can bring us together. And I want to also mention that Balanced Veterans Network, whereas some of the other veteran service organizations, you have to have a certain status. We are open to all veterans. If you can prove you served at all, you are welcome in our community. We don't care what status it is. We've had many members come in, and I met a Marine, and he had done a couple tours, and he got back home and, got into some trouble, and he got booted. He got other, dishonorable discharge for some stuff. And he's welcome in our community. And it's said it's something he's missed, because a lot of these other organizations you can't join if you didn't go to, you can't be in the VFW if you didn't deploy or whatever. That doesn't matter to us at Balanced Veterans Network. We keep the politics aside. We are advocates in DC, so anybody that's elected in, we're going to be hounding them to make sure that we have the correct access to medicine. We don't care who, and we don't care anything else about you other than if you're a veteran and you come in and you just be kind. This medicine should make us all be kind. Be kind and come to the community, and you'll be loved and welcomed. And I've never felt more at home within the community. It's just, I don't know. So like you said, something about cannabis makes it really welcoming, and there's just some love and community to be shared, and that's untouchable. That's some of the best mental health stuff you'll ever find.
Oh, 100%. That was a great way to end it. Gosh, I don't know how to top that. That's a really great segue out. Thank you again, CJ. We greatly appreciate you having you on.
This has been fantastic.
For all listeners, we'll be putting links to BVN, the YouTube channel, and some of my favorite episodes of Bowlside Chat, honestly, will be in that list. And we hope to see you all in the next episode.
Goodbye. Thank you, guys.